So I'm going to record this real quick. Let me just put this in your face so you guys can see it a little bit better. All right. So what I was just talking about was adding columns. So I'm going to get rid of the columns that I had in there, not the window, just the columns. All right. And then we had some railings, so we'll get rid of the railings. We'll just take a look at that really quick. All right. So what you should have in your project as of right now, and we'll get rid of that soffit. We'll build that in a little bit. All right, so what you should have in your project as of right now, all right, is you need the porch and you need the porch roof. You need one wall underneath the porch roof. All right, I do have like a little 1 foot space between the front face of the wall and the edge of the roof. Okay, make sure that your wall is facing the right way. A lot of people were using like that exterior wall and maybe just didn't face it the correct direction. All right, so remember there is an exterior and an inside, or an exterior and an interior to those walls. If you just pick it, if it's facing the wrong way, you hit the space bar, it'll flip around. All right, but we want that stuff in place too. Next up, we're going to build those columns and the railings on the first floor floor plans. Okay, so where we built everything else so far is kind of where that stuff's going to go. When I start this off, I'm just going to look at like the porch. The porch has to be in the right spot, otherwise I'm not going to be able to get the columns in the right spot. Okay? When I'm done with that, I'm going to the architecture tool. We have walls, doors, windows, components, and then columns are here. Okay? There are two types of columns in Revit. You have these structural columns, and then you have architectural columns. These columns are going to be structural, but you're not going to find the right type of component under structural columns. So you have to go to the second option. Okay, architectural columns. When you get in there, I think if you're using my project, you should find something that's going to work. All right. Outside of that, I don't know what size columns you guys have exactly. I think they might be 8x8s. I think you have access to 8x8s. If not, it really doesn't matter. You can customize these pretty easy. So I'm just going to pick like a column type out of here. Let's just pretend like it's the wrong size to start with, and we'll put that over here. All right. When I go to the column, even if it's the wrong size, it's really easy to customize. And you've messed around with your type selector a little bit up until this point. So let's just go in there just to make sure that we can create this type of column if you don't have it in your project. I'm going to hit Edit Type. All right, right when I get in there, I could very easily change the size of the columns. All right, but that kind of makes this bad information and creates like a bad type that's not accurate. So it's always best to hit duplicate and just make a new type or a copy of the existing type and just name it what you want it to be. We're going to use 8x8 columns. All right, so they're going to be pretty large. They may structurally be a little bit smaller, but the surrounding is going to at least be 8x8. So we'll just go 8x8. All right, it says that I do have an 8x8 column in there, so I'm going to call mine 8x8, and then we'll just put like a little 2 at the end just to make it a different type, just to give it a different name. But you guys can go 8x8. All right, and then the dimensions of your column, it just wants to know the width and the depth. All right, so you could put in like the nominal dimension. You could go 0 feet, 0 inches, and then 0 feet 8 inches for each of those. Or like if you go to the lumberyard, they're really going to be 7.5 by 7.5. All right, I don't really care which one you put in, 8x8 or 7.5 by 7.5. If you want to be really specific, you can do that. Okay, but look at what happens as soon as you rename the column type, all right, and then change the dimensions. Now the column kind of has a new shape and a new size, and that's going to work out really good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just use my move tool to precisely move. Watch this exact move, right? We're going from the bottom left-hand corner of the column to the exact spot that we want to place it. So it's going like exactly right in the corner of the deck, all right? Then what we want to do is we want to evenly space more columns out across this whole span. So we have to support that really large beam that's going to hold up the roof. All right, there's an easy way to do that, and that's going to be with your array tool. So think about this. We used the example way back when we learned the array tool to make like a copy of a set of chairs and kind of space them out in the auditorium. This is going to work great for this instance. Okay, so we'll use the array tool, and what I want to do is I want to create an array of columns, and I want them to be spaced evenly across like this whole distance and still leave room for steps. All right. when you start using the array tool the first time, all right, you can basically like key in the distance between the two columns and then how many you want to create. But that kind of makes like a little bit of a guessing game. Like you have to sit here and you have to like move that second position and stuff like that. And that doesn't really work great in this instance. So what I want to do is, instead of using that create the second type, I'm just hitting undo real quick and going back to where I was. Alright, I'm going to pick my column, I'm going to use the array tool, and I'm going to go to move to last. Now watch this. If we pick this bottom right hand corner and you go all the way to the other side of the porch and you put that exactly where it's going to go, you can now just kind of put a number in here for how many you want. So if I put in 6 columns, every column is exactly spaced the same distance apart from each other, so that the first column is exactly where we located it and the last column is exactly where we located it. Alright, and that still leaves, let's just check the span really quick, because that's what's kind of important when it comes to the structural aspect of this. From the center of one column to the other, it leaves an 8-foot span, which is probably like smaller than it could be. We could probably exist with like a 10-foot. I don't know exactly how heavy that roof is, but an 8-foot span is completely manageable. We can get a good size structural beam on top of that. Okay? The other thing that's kind of cool is it leaves a good distance right here, all right, for a big staircase going up to the front door. All right? And that's kind of cool. If I want to be like really good, one other thing I could do at that point, I could create just like a little line, just a regular old line with some detail lines, and I could put a new line right in that midpoint of the line that I just built. All right? And we have that align tool over here where you can then take that line that you just drew, which is basically just construction geometry. All right, and what we want to do is we want to kind of like position our front door so it's like right in line with that. So check this out. I just built 2 lines. We'll do it again really quick. We'll just draw one with detail lines. We'll go from the center to the center. I'll go from the midpoint of that straight down. All right, this is just construction geometry. I'm going to delete it in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it as a reference. So this line is really truly the center of the porch. We could line up the front door right there. So right when you walk up the staircase, that front door is exactly in front of you. That creates like some good symmetry. All right, and then we can just go back and we can delete those lines and they're gone. But now we got 6 columns evenly spaced across the front porch. Front doors like lined up with them. All right, that works really good. Check it in 3D. That looks awesome. All right. If we need to attach those up to, anything, like columns actually attach also. So you can attach columns to the roof. All right, but we are going to build a soffit in there, so we don't really have to worry about that yet. We could actually attach those to the soffit when we're done. Let's go ahead and try that one really quick. All right, and I'll come back in a second with another video here.